right, a good day to all. Sam here with you on Tuesday, August 28th, kind of midday. And as it's a Tuesday, we're going to take a look at a couple of traditional assets. So we did some polling amongst the members, and by request, first up is a look at Twitter. So here's Twitter. I've got the full history here. This is a 3-day chart, which I often use. I prefer it to the weekly. So you can see here, I'm working off the absolute lows down here, and we have a fairly technical impulsive structure that appears to be completed, and now perhaps we're in the midst of a correction here. So we'll get to that in a second here, but let's just take a quick look here. So I'm going to go from the 3-day down to the daily. Just a few things to look at. This will be pretty straightforward. So all I've done down here is wick off the lowest low that I could find here. So our absolute low down here was what, 1368 looks like. So coming up now, here there's a little bit of a judgment call. So here, coming off of what I'm proposing here is our one wave. We do get an ABC, and we have all the subdivision we'd want. Now this is very, very deep, but you know, it stays internal. So we maintain the internal structure here. So while it's very close to challenging that low, and essentially you could damn near call it a double bottom, we do not violate that low. So we have a candidate here, and I think it plays this way, that we get a one wave here, and then we get an ABC, corrects it, and while it's very deep, it does play from that level going higher. There's a few tricky spots here. So if we're going to allow for this to be our 2, we're going to go 1, 2, and then I've got us going up here 3. So the subdivision is going to be important if this count is going to work. So let me open this up a little bit. So I do think we get an expanded flat here. The 3-wave structure is a bit of a tell here. So I've got us going 1, then an ABC into or 3-wave structure, I should say. So we get an ABC into an A, ABC into a B. Now this gets a little trickier here. You've got to go into an intraday chart here, but this will work here, and the depth of the retracement. We work here from our low to our 1. So we look here. Now we have a couple things you can see. So first, you've got to clear. Here's just a very typical classic algo play right there. So they front run the target. So we go from the 618 right to target. Look at the reaction. So that's partly why I think we've got an expanded B wave here. So we go A, B down for the C. We hold. Now here's kind of the judgment call. So an algorithm doesn't care about the Elliott count. It's just going to use swing low, swing high. So with that, we come right to the 786. Us with our Elliott hats here thinking, looks like an expanded flat. Same difference here. We hold between the 618 and the 786, common retracement level for a 2. It's always a push to try and get to new lows, just as this was a push to get to those lows. They can't do it, and then we get the turnaround. So if we consider that, and as you're working through this, of course, now we're working through the subdivision. So if that's a 1, ABC into a 2, well, I've got enough here to start projecting as to where I might look for and anticipate my third. So if I take the length of the 1, project it from the 2 low, as I have it, here's our highest probability zone for a third, right here between the 1618 and the 175. We literally go there to the tick. So we've got a good candidate here for a third in that degree. So if I think 1, 2, 3, well, if I'm going to have this be my third, I've got to have an impulsive wave structure here to allow for that count, and I can get one rather nicely. So I've got a 1, 2, and you can see here I go 1, 2, 3, 4. We don't overlap the 1, so we get an impulsive structure into my third, down for the 4, up we go for the 5th of the third. So it's nice to see that we get that subdivision that plays right in line with where we're anticipating. And interestingly, look, we get this prior resistance here. So we come right into the pocket, get the retracement. That sets us up for a 4. So far, it's just textbook Elliott Wave. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, well, a couple of things we can check here. So looking from our proposed 2 up to our 3, well, that's about as classic as they come. We're right to the 38, slight front run on it. Here's an algo target. Possibly that's a front run, creates the 2. Hard to say. Hard to say. But we've got a count that's in play here. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. And it looks like we can go 1, 2, 3. We get a little triangle pattern here in the 4 and go up for the 5. So just measuring that. Same thing every time, guys, as always. So we take it from the 2. You look at the 3 and say, that looks pretty good here. Well, So here you got a couple of problems. So if you're pulling from here or here, if this is your 3, well, look here. So we're going from the front run here on the 38. Maybe that's a front run on the target. It's hard to say. That's 36.79. Target would be 37.27. It's hard to call that. That could possibly be. But given the reaction, I think what we can say is that this 5-wave structure has completed. So now reassembling that and trying to put that back together, that gives us 1, 2, all the subdivision plays into my 3 here in green. So I've got a good setup here for my third. I get the straight rip down. You can see we get a little A, B, C down here. We hold the 1. So, of course, we'd want to look for that relationship between the 2 to the 3 pivot. Now, we go deep here, but given how deep this goes, that doesn't surprise me terribly. So we get through the 38, but this is the prime spot, right? So this is what we're paying attention to. Do we overlap the 1? Note how the 50 sits right above the 1. Interesting. So we go through the 38, but we hold. The Vegas wave is there, so we don't even challenge that. And then from there, it's a straight rip up. Well, we look here and we say, well, it looks like, we don't get, it blows right through this target. We don't quite make the second, so we're kind of in between. So that always makes me question that. And I look and think, okay, what else is there? Well, a couple of things I could do. I could look for the length of the 1. Relationship there from the length of the 1 relative to the 5th. Well, again, it's nothing to the tick. I could do it this way. I could look for the length of the 1 through the 3 and trading from the 4 projecting. Again, it's nothing perfect here. So now it makes me think, well, I got to maybe dig into this third here. So if we look here, coming off of this 4, this looks to me like, well, let's do this. This looks like this is up for interpretation. So we could have this classic pattern that we see all the time where you'd have this coming down as an A, B, and then we get the C. That's possible. Well, so if you're wondering and you kind of go back and forth, and that's always the case when you see something like that because it's not textbook. Ideally, you'd have the C come down here and at least double bottom into the A. But it does set this kind of pattern up that we see all the time in 4s where we get this kind of triangle pattern, right? So we get that little thing and then we get the break and that sends us up for the 5. Well, that could change some of the projections here if we're using that for the 4. So then we look here and we think, all right, let's take it from the 2 to the 3. Well, now that puts me to the tick at the 38. Kind of interesting. So I lean more into this as my third here. So now within this last move up here, I've got to get some sort of a motive wave here. So we've got to go down from the daily. Oh, let's go to the hourly, see how that looks. So let's try and get this here so you can see it. So it's pretty much a straight shot up. So it's a tricky one here. So if this is going to be A, and it looks like we can get a good solid A here, A, B, C into a B. This is a bit of a pinch, but it looks like we can go from this 1, 2. Well, when you've got this kind of straight rip up here, it's just that's where measuring will be helpful. So if this is my 1, I'm going to have to allow for a very shallow 2. Maybe 3, 4. So if we try and think about how that might play, so we could have 1. I don't love how shallow that is, but this actually looks to me more like that's 3, 4, and we go 5 here. Here we are at the 2618 relative to the length of the 1. We could also project here from, wrong handle. We can go the length of the 1 projected from a proposed 4, as that's the best looking 4 we've got. Now we get 1618 to the tick. So now I think this count starts to play because what I want up here is I want something technical. I want a technical pivot before I really lean into this count. So this gives it to me here. So it's not the cleanest count I've ever seen because of the shallowness of the 2, the shortness of the 4, but there it is. So the whole time you're looking for, why does it pivot here? Why does it pivot? What's there that would cause that? So the fact that I can get that 1618 to the tick, so I will lean into that. So coming off of that, now if I go, I'm going to go back out to the daily, right? We can give it some context. Okay, so if we allow for this as a completed 5-wave structure, you can see we have the huge gap here. So we had earnings. Well, actually let's see. It's our surprise here. So for whatever reason, the market did not like it on the earnings. So we have this huge gap here now sitting unfilled. So maybe the market, the B wave here, potentially setting up to fill that gap. But I kind of like this count here. So I've got my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 completing up here. Well, if that's complete, right, as I've shown you, God knows how many hundreds of times, if we complete a 5 waves, we're just going to go from our absolute low to our high, and we're looking for it anywhere from the 50 to the 618. Well, what do? We go right to the 50. And the 233 catches it there to the tick. So it's a couple of ticks off the 50, but it gives me a good candidate here for a 1-2. Now, question is that done? So if that were to be a 1, this looks more like an A wave to me, like we've just come down straight into an A wave. It's very common for an A wave to be the first tap of the 50. Remember, now, an algo doesn't care, so the move off of that, likely algo driven. So before I call that my 2, let's put these up here just as placeholders, and let's get that. We got to go up a bit here. Let's go there for our larger degree count. So I'm more inclined to think there may well be one more push here. So at first glance, this just for looking at it, I'm more inclined to think we've got something like this going in. Let's take that up a degree. We can go to micro here. Okay, so if this is the completed 1 wave, well, I'm struggling to dig a clean 3-wave structure out here. I think this is more likely we're going to do something like this up for a B. Maybe we fill the gap and then we come back down one time. Maybe the 618, maybe we double bottom here at the 50. If I had to just do a little forecasting, that's the roadmap that I would keep in place. So I'd be looking for that B wave right here. I'm right on it here. So boy, I've been doing this too long. If I can free draw right to the golden zone. So down from the 1, up we go to the B wave here. But that's a candidate. Now, you know, this could just keep going here, but I would want to see, it sort of depends here. So now if we get a motive wave here, then we'd lean more into trying to carve an ABC out of this move down here because it's technical. But if I don't, so let me redraw this. So if I get a 3-wave structure here, so if I get something along these lines and we go up this way and I get my B wave there, then that's, you know, a question of whether you want to get on the short side of it. Easy enough to short Twitter. So if you were to get a 3-wave structure, well, to some degree here, you're looking for that subdivision to help guide you as to whether or not you're comfortable with that risk there. So after that, then, you know, if it comes down here and we hold here, now you could have a diagonal, because if that were to be the 2-wave, we could have a leading diagonal. So if we were to get something like this, that would give us a 5-wave structure, then I'd back off of that count saying, oh, okay, well, it looks like maybe this is the B, maybe this is the A. Yeah, it looks like B in here, and we might have the C is in and the 2 is in. But how do you know? Well, you just don't know until you see what kind of structure this takes. Do we get 5? Right, and then possibly that's just a leading well, if we overlap here, then we'd get a leading diagonal into a 1-wave of the 3rd of the larger degree. That's a candidate. So too soon to trade. So as far as I'm concerned, if you didn't buy the 50, it's too late to be a buyer here. I wouldn't be a seller. So you're kind of in no man's land waiting. So I would be looking for this gap to be filled, which is more why I lean into this as a likely B wave here, but you can't eliminate, so you'd have this as your alternate. This would be a primary. We'd keep this over here, so the idea being that the 2 is not in yet. So part of that is just the symmetry here. So we can look at the length of the 1. This seems awfully abrupt, and the time symmetry isn't good here for this to be the completed 2. Not that it's not possible, certainly possible, but in terms of laying out a primary count, I'd be looking for 3 to take me up for a B and then 1 more push down. Now, if we were to get that, if this were to come down here towards, you can see here, well, again, now I'm randomly picking that. I don't know where the pivot is here, but if we were to go golden zone, interestingly, here's the algo target sitting right on top of the 618. Now that would be a screaming buy, right? Because now you're trying to get into the 3rd, you're getting into the big wave. So you get into the 3rd on the daily, and now you got much higher prices, all still to come. These are just placeholders up above, so we'd shove those up there. So if you could get that, that's the buy right there. Here, this, you know, if you like swing trading here and you're willing to trade on these smaller swings, nothing wrong with that. So what would you do? So first thing, you'd look for some sort of reaction at the 50, but note where the 50 is. You're right in the middle of the gap. So I like it better up here for a short, going golden zone. That's higher probability here, and I like the risk reward looks better if I can sell it up here looking for a push down. So you'd essentially be looking for a trade to go golden zone to golden zone, right? Which, you know, if you had to pick two pivots, that would be the most ideal. So still yet too uncertain here to build a trade off of that. Yeah, I do like that. So if you could buy it down here, and we don't know. Listen, for all we know, all right, we can't say for sure. This could be a very shallow little A wave here. Maybe we get a little A, we sell off here, and then we get the extension here. We get the bigger C wave, takes us up to the B. No way to know where that A wave pivots until we get it. All right, so this, and by that I mean the A wave of the proposed B. And that's hypothetical as well, because we don't know that this is going to be 3. But that's the roadmaps that I would leave on my chart as a primary count. Fairly obvious what the alternate is, either that could because of the tap of the 50. So where's the algo looking for it? Algo's looking for it up here, right? So that whatever algorithm bought it here is just going to sit and stay long. So it will defend down here. So there's lots of opportunity here, but it's going to take patience. So this is the kind of chart that I would just alert these. So I'd want to be alerted when we hit the 50, curious about the reaction, still looking for it to close the gap. Here, I'd consider a short, right? So you know where you're wrong, right? And if I were going to short that, I'd actually not want to give it much. If I were shorting here, I wouldn't give it much beyond the 786, maybe a couple ticks there. So coming down here, if we were going to get to target, see, even there, that's 3.89 to 1. You know, it's not a home run ball, but I like the risk reward. I wouldn't, certainly knowing that a B can go higher. I mean, we can get an expanded flat. We don't know. But if I were going to take that trade, 3.89 to 1. Now, what if we only go to the 50? All right, we double bottom at the 50. Now you're 2.78 to 1. You know, that's the kind of trade that maybe you tighten up here. So if we went to the 60, so if I were a seller at the 50, right? So maybe we got the opposite 50, and we went 50 to 50, and we put the stop at the 65. Now you got 4 to 1, but you're allowing for this to stop you out. So you're just playing the algo swings. So on the assumption that if the 65 is violated, the algo is gonna flip, right? It's not that it buys it there; it's that it'll just take the next 50. So as I've shown this many times, what that means is that if this were to violate the 65 here, so the algorithm's just going to take the next 50. So if, let's say we went 786, so let me clear this up a little bit so you can see it. If we went all the way to 786, not uncommon for a B wave. So maybe we hit something like this, right? So we got an A, B up here. Well, if we're stopped out here, what the algorithm's going to do is just going to do this. So if we went 786, so let's pull this off. So the next is, if it comes down here, the next buy will be here, looking for this as their target. See that? So from 50 to here. Now we could go up there and do that. That technically, now, well, it depends on what the shape looked like. If we did it like this, let's see if I can draw this. If we did it like this, and we went up to here, down to the 50, this could still technically be the B. Then we could come down. Then we could come down from here. Right, so that's something to keep in mind. It's always in the back of your mind. What did the algos do last? What are they most likely to do if they're stopped out and they have to reverse? Where are they going to buy next? Now, just because an algorithm is there doesn't mean that we must hit target. It just means if you were looking for a place to be a buyer. So if you were a buyer here at the 50 looking for that target, you're still playing this as a correction because that's a 3-wave structure. Still looking for the B pivot to bring you down to the C. That's how I would approach it. Just looking for those probability zones. What did the algo do last? What are they likely to do next? Where are their targets? What happens at that target? Those are all the questions you have to ask yourself. But you've got kind of an interesting combination here of algo participation with a very clean Elliott count. It's exactly what we look for. All right, so interesting. Good. I hadn't looked at Twitter in a while. I'm not in Twitter. But it's very, very technical trading here. So for the members that are looking at it, that's how I would approach it here. No trade at the moment, but lots of opportunity potentially setting up as we go into the fourth quarter of this year, really. So if we look out here, we're already into the end of the year, and then potentially now setting up first quarter of next year. So with equities, it's different time horizons. So potentially now, good things setting up for the longer term. All right. So with that, I'll call it a wrap and be back with one more today. All right. See you later.